The tariff slowdown has arrived, and it's impacting bookings for container shipments from China to the U.S. As of May 2025, bookings have dropped by nearly 50%. Chinese goods are pushing product prices higher and forcing many U.S. importers to halt shipments altogether. Imagine a major port on the coast, normally filled with the sounds of cranes and the hum of trucks continuously moving containers. Now that same port is eerily quiet. The cranes are idle, workers are on half shifts, and the warehouse doors remain locked. The U.S. government's 145% tariff on imported goods from China has been a key reason behind this disruption. While some hold hope that a trade deal will be struck with China, the reality of the situation has led to the Port of Los Angeles, one of the biggest import hubs in the U.S., turning into a ghost town. Cargo flow has been severely disrupted, many shipments are canceled, and goods worth $14 billion are now sitting in limbo. Consumers are noticing fewer options on store shelves, but they may not fully understand just how deep the problem is. Who is truly paying the price for this? And what kind of crisis is unfolding across the entire retail-to-logistics ecosystem? Ports are typically buzzing with activity, importers and exporters busy with shipping, cranes unloading and loading containers, and ships constantly coming in and out. But now a huge chunk of these docks is empty, and the rest is filled with containers that haven't been claimed. Inside these containers are U.S.-branded products like textiles, electronics, furniture, and automotive spare parts. Many of these goods are sitting in warehouses because the buyers have canceled orders due to the high tariffs. Others are caught up because sellers have given up, frustrated by ongoing customs barriers. What we are witnessing is a vast backlog of goods that have neither been shipped nor officially canceled. The Port of Los Angeles has long been a vital gateway for Chinese imports into the U.S., handling tens of millions of containers annually. But now cranes are idle, customs officers are on reduced shifts, and containers are haphazardly scattered on the grounds. This is a situation no one expected. In April 2025 alone, over 80 scheduled sailings to the West Coast were canceled, and more disruptions are expected in May. On China's side, export terminals are overwhelmed with containers. Some ships are skipping U.S. stops entirely, and others are drifting offshore, waiting for unclear instructions. Port authorities predict a drop in cargo volume by as much as 35%, a larger decline than the disruptions caused during the pandemic. It's not just a slowdown, it's a full-scale recession for logistics. For years, experts have warned of a potential supply chain crisis, but this isn't a temporary crunch. It's a systemic issue that has been triggered by political moves, particularly the sudden imposition of unusually high tariffs on Chinese imports. These tariffs have crippled a logistics system that was just starting to recover from the pandemic. In China, factories are struggling with canceled or postponed orders, and many are at risk of shutting down. On the U.S. side, dock workers are standing by with little to do, customs officers are operating at half capacity, and truck drivers are idling. Some hope that the situation will resolve in a few months, but some predict that the full effects will extend well into 2025, and the recovery could take years. This trade freeze is also taking a toll on retail chains. Both department stores and online giants who have relied heavily on Chinese imports are now facing major issues in restocking products. The National Retail Federation predicts that U.S. imports will drop by 20% in the second half of 2025, leading to fewer products on store shelves and more expensive, hard-to-find alternatives. Large retailers may have the financial resources to weather the storm, but small businesses are especially vulnerable. If the tariffs rise to 145% on items like toys or electronic accessories, many small businesses won't be able to absorb these costs and may either pass them on to the consumer or stop importing altogether. This has serious consequences because logistics and manufacturing are interconnected. One disruption leads to another. Many companies are exploring alternatives, such as sourcing goods from countries like Vietnam, Thailand, or Indonesia, or even bringing production back to the U.S. However, these changes are far from simple. The infrastructure in countries like Vietnam still lags behind China's, and moving production back to the U.S. requires significant investment, higher labor costs, and navigating stringent regulations. Moreover, no one knows whether tariffs will be reduced or if the political climate will stabilize in the next 3 to 5 years. The uncertainty surrounding this situation is arguably more problematic than the higher costs themselves. Businesses are left watching Washington and Beijing closely, but without clear answers. As of April 2025, the U.S. economy is showing signs of strain, with GDP shrinking by 0.3%, the first contraction since the pandemic. This raises serious concerns. If logistics slows down, entire industries, especially automotive and tech, could see production lines falter due to a shortage of spare parts and raw materials. The reduction in truck shipments and rail transportation is already having a direct impact on workers, with many seeing reduced hours. If this persists, mass layoffs could follow, extending even into retail sectors. Even something as seemingly simple as a tariff hike can have a multiplier effect that freezes parts of the economy. The U.S. political response to the surge in tariffs is also noteworthy. While some argue that the tariffs are necessary to reduce reliance on China, others believe that the real risk is a supply chain collapse. While tariff revenues have increased, the costs of disrupted supply chains, such as lost goods and unprocessed cargo, are beginning to outweigh the benefits. Reports from the U.S. Congressional Research Service and independent consultants estimate that the value of goods delayed or canceled in 2024 and 2025 due to tariffs and other trade disruptions is around $14 billion. This trade war started in 2018 with the imposition of tariffs during the Trump administration, and while China remains one of the largest suppliers to the U.S., the flow of goods has often been interrupted. The pandemic added to the complications as delays in customs procedures, higher import costs, and hesitation from Chinese manufacturers to operate in such a risky market created further friction. As a result, many goods destined for the U.S. were either canceled, delayed, or redirected to other markets. And this issue is not limited to the U.S. Ports in China like Shenzhen, Ningbo, and Shanghai are also experiencing unusually high container backlogs, some of which have caused ghost port conditions, with only 1 or 2 ships arriving each month compared to the usual dozens. The financial impact is substantial. It's estimated that $14 billion in goods are now stuck or canceled in 2024 to 2025, roughly 2 to 3% of total trade, but the consequences are much larger. For small and medium-sized businesses, this translates into a growing crisis. Deposits have been lost, freight costs have skyrocketed, and alternative suppliers are simply too expensive. In the end, U.S. consumers will feel the impact with fewer options on the shelves and higher prices. As for China, the picture is also bleak. With declining exports due to tariffs and a still recovering economy, millions of workers in China's factories are at risk of losing their jobs. Unemployment is already a serious concern, especially among the youth. Yet China is recalibrating by shifting focus to intra-Asian trade and developing markets in Africa and Latin America. However, it's unclear how much of the loss from the U.S. market they can recoup. According to U.S. Department of Commerce data, close to $500 billion in goods flow into the U.S. from China every year. The recent blockade has resulted in a significant chunk of this trade being delayed or lost. $14 billion in canceled goods represents a 2 to 3% reduction in the flow, but it's a domino effect with large financial implications. For small businesses, this is a major blow. Each 40-foot container usually carries between $50,000 and $70,000 in goods, which means the $14 billion in losses is equivalent to roughly 200,000 containers. Behind each of those containers are workers, logistics companies, and suppliers. Tens of thousands of people whose jobs and livelihoods are now at risk. Some of these goods are stuck in Chinese ports, others are sitting in U.S. warehouses, still others are being sold elsewhere in markets like Africa and Latin America. Ultimately, the U.S. and China are both losers in this trade war. While the U.S. aims to reduce its dependence on Chinese goods, the immediate impact is severe. Small and medium businesses are suffering, and the broader economy is facing inflationary pressures. So, where does this situation go from here? We are witnessing a long-term battle between two giant economies, and the real question is whether the U.S. will pay the price for tariffs now, or if this pain will result in a more competitive future. What do you think? Is the $14 billion worth of cargo really the missing piece in the U.S. economy? Is this a temporary crisis or the beginning of something bigger? Will China bend to the pressure and resume exports, or will it look to new markets in Asia and beyond? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, turn on notifications, and like the video to support the conversation. See you in the next update.